Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are working on a 2013 Subaru Outback with a leaky clutch hose. To gain access to this hose, we need to pull off the air intake. There's just a couple of clamps at the air box and at the throttle body, and then we also need to remove the crankcase ventilation hose, which is on the driver's side, and it has a spring clamp. So grab a pair of needle nose, move that clamp back on the hose, and you can pull that hose off of the air intake tube. Once the intake hose is out of the way, we can gain access to the clutch hose. And as you can see, the dampness on this hose is seeping the brake fluid out. It's not actively leaking, but to prevent it from blowing out, we are going to replace it. Now where the clutch line goes into the hose, there is a 10mm line nut. And then on this end of the hose, it's a 14mm banjo bolt. So you're going to have to get a wrench on the line, and you don't want to round this off. So if it's not going to move, then you may have to get a line wrench or a crow's foot that will fit on there to gain more strength on removing that nut. Now I just cracked it loose and then snugged it back up because I need to unhook a clip that holds that hose to the bracket. So I use a pair of side cutters. I don't squeeze very hard, but slide that out. And now I can loosen up that nut and remove the hose. And what I do is I have the new hose ready to go back on. So as soon as I unhook that, I can install the new hose to prevent too much fluid from leaking out. I try to get the line started into the hose before I put the clip on, and then get it almost snug, wiggle the hose around until it falls into the detent, and then you can put that clip back in place before snugging up the line all the way. So grab your 10mm wrench, snug this up. It doesn't have to be super tight. You just have to make sure it doesn't leak once you're done. And I just positioned the new line up above the throttle body. That way it's higher than the reservoir and it won't leak fluid out while I'm working on the rest of the system. So grab a 14mm socket and take the banjo bolt out of the slave cylinder, and be careful because there are 2 copper washers that seal that bolt. Now I replaced the washers with new washers from Subaru. I will put the part numbers in the description down below.
That way you get some nice airflow.
Now you may have to try to twist the hose to get the bolt to go in straight, but once you get that banjo bolt started, go ahead and run it all the way down and then tighten it up with your ratchet. Now this is another bolt that doesn't have to be real tight because it's a hollow bolt. They do break easily. Now after I get this set up, I will show you how to bleed it by yourself because there's not always someone around to push the pedal for you. The bleeder screw is 8mm, so break that loose. And then I'll let that brake fluid leak out. And this is gravity bleeding the system. Make sure you have enough fluid in the clutch reservoir. After it's been dripping a little bit, I'll snug it up and I'll put a wrench on it. And then I'm just going to actuate the slave cylinder. I'll loosen the bleeder, push the slave in, tighten the bleeder, and let the slave slowly expand back out. Once it expands out, open the bleeder, push in the slave, and I just do this several times to purge the air out of the system. Now while I'm doing this, I'm making sure that the clutch fluid remains full in the reservoir, or at least below the minimum line. If it gets low, top it up with some .3 brake fluid before going any further. And at this point I had to add more fluid. So I'm going to fill it up to the full mark and then put the cap back on. You don't want to leave the system open for too long because brake fluid will absorb moisture out of the air and it can cause contamination into your system. So using a new container of brake fluid, add some brake fluid, and then immediately put the cap back on before going any further. At this point I got in the vehicle and pressed the clutch pedal numerous times and made sure there was no excessive free play or sponginess. This one was okay. So now you can check the lines, make sure there's no leakage. If there's no leakage, you can put the air intake back on the vehicle, make sure to hook up that crankcase vent with the spring clamp, and then you're going to want to wash all of that brake fluid off the vehicle. So just grab the garden hose, clean that up, and you'll be good to go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.